Welcome to the Salt Strong Podcast, disrupting fishing entertainment as you know it. Prepare to laugh. Prepare to get to know fishing legends in a whole new and unfiltered way. And on occasion, you might even learn a thing or two about fishing. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
The Unanxious Lamb. Hey everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds. Back again with Salt Strong UNCHURCHED. Have you ever seen an anxious lamb before? I'm guessing you haven't, because lambs don't really get anxious, and it's because they have a shepherd. And I got some stories to share with this, but what kind of sparked this was I'm still getting a ton of messages, YouTube comments, etc. on that post I did. It was a video post I did on YouTube a while back about the 3 ways to overcome anxiety without, being stuck on medication. And it's, 600-something thousand views. And I feel like I talk about it a lot. And I think just because it's such a big part of today. In fact, this is crazy. And this is from the American Psychological Association, that children today, normal children, like the normal kids that you see at school every day, report more anxiety than the child psychiatric patients in the 50s. So these were kids who, like, their parents, and that was a big deal back then, right? You didn't go see a shrink unless something was really, really wrong. So imagine the 1950s, a parent is having to take their kid to a psychiatric, doctor, a psychiatrist, to overcome some major issues they're dealing with. And it says today's normal children are reporting more anxiety overall than the child psychiatric patients in the 50s. And even same with college. It's more than doubled in terms of people who have had an anxiety disorder, an anxiety attack, are dealing with daily anxiety, just feel the stress and anxiety. And these are college kids today versus the college kids 50 years ago. So there have been people in the 60s. Crazy, absolutely bonkers. And we talked about it before, how much stress is out there with the average person, how much they're feeling the burden. And the interesting part is, I take a step back, today compared to, let's just say 50, 60 years ago, we have so many more opportunities for jobs, right? I mean, think about the opportunities for a lot of people coming out of college in the 60s and the 50s. I mean, if your parents were farmers, you were a farmer, right? Like there was so much more of this incestual, hey, my dad or mom did this, or if in many cases for women, there weren't that many opportunities to go get a job in the 50s and 60s. Yeah, so we have all these opportunities. We have more technology to keep us connected. We have more technology now with AI to get things done for us fast. We've got delivery on demand 24/7, from the Walmart Pluses to Amazon to Grubhub. If you wanted food delivered to you and didn't want to get in your car, I mean, there's so many amazing things that we have to help us out in life, to make things easier for us and essentially less stressful, right? You would think that, oh man, I don't even have to go to the grocery store. I can have, ABC company deliver it. Now there's Uber Eats, and, there's a million different companies that can even deliver it straight to your door. You would think that all of these things would be reducing the amount of stress and anxiety we have, and yet it's the opposite. And so I want to go back to a time in my life where, this is not where you're thinking I'm going with the anxiety stuff, but it was when my wife and I took a trip with her brother and his wife, so my brother-in-law and sister-in-law, to Argentina and Chile. And we did this amazing backpacking trip. And we, it was a thing called the W, and I guess it was kind of right near the border of Argentina and Chile. So we went and hiked on glaciers and did some cool stuff. And then it was, 4 or 5 day backpack trip, which was all part of this, 2-week amazing trip in Argentina and Chile. And the W, imagine what a W looks like. You kind of start at the bottom. So it's like a W plus of bottom arrow. And then you hike up to the top. So it would be like the top of the left side of the W. You spend the night up there, come back down. You have a camp there. So each kind of point on the W, you're camping or deciding to just kind of push through. So it's a multi-day deal. And at the very end, you kind of stop and take a ferry back to where you started. And it was amazing. And there was one point there. The one thing they told us to watch out for, to be very careful for, and to be prepared for, is sit together, make a lot of loud noise, and try to look big is pumas. They actually have pumas, and this is not like America where you got a guide. This is not like America where it's, you got shops and stuff that you can stop every once in a while, and bathrooms and a nice guided tour. This was, you're on your own. I mean, you're out there in the wilderness, you run out of food, you could die. It's very different in third world countries, or not, I won't say third world, any other country besides America, in terms of how things are laid out, and bars, to make sure you don't fall off ledges. I mean, this is pretty hardcore camping. And we're at like the last day. And so we're close enough to this part where where these ships are taking people back over, but still, hours away. And all of a sudden we're on this small little trail in the middle of the woods, and we're worn out. Like, we're just beat at this point. And all of a sudden we hear like footsteps, and we can't really see them yet. And we hear like noises like running towards us. So it's a one-way trail. Like, no one would be coming to us. We're like, what is going on? And it's these guys, and it didn't hit us until later. They didn't have backpacks on. They were just a bunch of locals. And they're screaming at the top of lungs, "Puma, Puma, Puma, Puma." And they're running at us. And so, like, we have, full backpacks on, and we still have not as much water as we started with. Like, we're still heavy backpacks of all our stuff for 4 days. And like, we're like, what do we do? And I remember all of these emotions, this fight or flight. It's what people feel when they have a panic attack. I mean, everything in my body was telling me to run as fast as we can. We kind of started running with them a little bit. And then, it finally hit us, like, one, if there's a puma, we're supposed to stick together. Like, let's get back to the plan. But we did everything the opposite. We literally just complete fight or flight. And then we started like putting two and two together. Like, man, these guys don't have backpacks. They're punking us. The whole thing was a prank. I guess they do this with, people they want to play pranks on. Some of the locals do. And anyhow, it was a good prank. They definitely got us. But it got me thinking so much about panic and anxiety. And that is what a true on panic attack or an anxiety attack feels like. It feels like there is a puma chasing you, or at least the thought. And I had a full-on panic. I mean, my heart was beating through my body. I mean, it was nuts how scared we were. Talk about an adrenaline rush. But the irony is, after that, and this ties in with the story about the lamb. So after that, we had to take a pretty long journey down to the next city that we were going to stay at. And so we're done backpacking. We're in the rental car that we have. And there's multiple times where we had to stop. And in the middle of the road, there'd just be sheep crossing, lambs crossing over. And it was funny, as much as you honked and as close as you got to them, they never freaked out. It was the craziest thing. I still remember it because normally like with a cow or something else, or ducks, you could sit there and honk at them and they'll kind of park the road and let you pass by, or maybe they just freak out altogether. There is nothing you could do to freak out these sheep, these lambs. Not a single thing that you could do. It was wild. There'd be all these sheep in the road, and there could be hundreds of them. And as long as they could sense and not even have to see, because when you're in a pack of a bunch of other sheep, you're not going to be able to see the actual shepherd. But as long as they could sense the shepherd, they didn't do anything. It was wild. And so these sheep were the calmest, coolest, collected things you've ever seen. They didn't get angry. Like, what would happen if you went to a bunch of people and they were crossing the road and honking at them, laying on your horn? They'd be getting angry. They'd flick you off. They do all kinds of stuff. Yet these sheep, they just walked at their own controlled pace. Nothing was bothering them. didn't almost ignored us. Like they didn't really care as long as they could sense that shepherd was ahead of them. And they could sense that because the people in front of them, or the lambs in front of them, the sheep in front of them could, were just basically going off the energy of the ones in front of them. And as there was some group of these sheep that could clearly see the shepherd in the very, very front row. And they were just putting off that same vibe that, hey, it's all cool. It's good. And where I'm going with this is, when I was at the height of my anxiety attacks, I wasn't relying on God. I maybe I couldn't sense God or see God. And it was part of my life where I was struggling with it. And I can't help but wonder, with all of the anxiety going on in the world, and it happens to coincide with the time that schools are trying to kick God out of classrooms, and colleges, Harvard, had hired their first ever. Harvard started as one of the very first colleges, and it was based on Christianity, right? There was a huge part of faith at Harvard. They for forever, since it started, have had pastors, and chaplains at Harvard. And they're getting rid of that slowly but surely. They had the first atheist head of religion. The head of religion at Harvard is an atheist now for the first time ever. It's like we're doing all this stuff to kick God out of our lives. And I can't help but wonder that maybe, just maybe, it happens to be a similar reason that so many people are dealing with anxiety and stress. They don't have a shepherd. They don't have God in their lives. Because we're trying to kick them out and kind of bastardize the just religions in general, and in particular Christianity obviously has taken the biggest beating. And as I read that daily Bible that I've talked about before, there are cycles, and I kind of feel like we're going through one, and these cycles kind of coincide when the people of the day, whether it be the Israelites, et cetera, that kind of kick God out of their lives and have some, basically, in their case, it was usually bad leaders, because it was way different than today, where we got elected officials and stuff. But they would have a leader who didn't want God in their lives or in their cities, and would kind of try to dethrone them themselves. And God would at some point roar his anger and his wrath and either destroy it or get rid of it or bring his people up into power. It was really wild how these cycles have happened. I feel like we're going through one where we're not there yet. And who knows what it will look like. Obviously, I don't know, but it feels like we're on the cusp of this, I'm going to call it revival, if you will, where either Christians in general, God's people, are going to just say, we've had enough of all this stuff, or he's going to come in and just start wiping some things out. I don't know, but I also don't think it's helping the media. And, I've said this multiple times. I hear from a lot of people, and I'll reply back to them and say, well, like, tell me, what does your life look like in a given day? What's triggering this stuff? And a lot of it's triggering, a lot of what this anxiety is triggered by is all the stuff they're reading and watching on the news. I'm like, well, stop watching the stinking news. I was on Facebook this morning. I don't watch the news, but Facebook is kind of my news. And there was a post about the very first male homecoming queen, right? It's homecoming season, and it was talking about the first male homecoming queen. It gets me riled up. Regardless of where you stand, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this, we're probably somewhat aligned. But either way, it doesn't matter. It gets me riled up. I don't think that's right. I've got a son and 2 daughters. I don't think that they should have to lose a crown to someone who's not really that same sex. It to me, that's bonkers. And not just a homecoming crown, but the crown in swimming or in soccer, or whatever it is, to someone who doesn't belong there, because that's not how God made them. To me, that is just absolutely bonkers. But here's where it gets worse. So it had like 6.2 thousand comments, and there's half the people are ticked off saying that's the most absurd, bizarre, godless thing we've ever seen. Why are we even putting up with this junk? And the other half is saying, oh, we should love everyone. And Here's the crazy part. I was like, I'm going to do a little research on this. Like, is this even real? And it was real. However, it was 4 years ago. Okay. So this post that it just happened in the last 24 hours here on Facebook. So this is a brand new post. It was not republished from 4 years ago, made to look from a news group, made to look brand new. And it turns out it was a young man who was gay. And he did win Homecoming King, okay? So he fair and square won Homecoming King. And he decided to put a dress on when he got the crown. So it was not the first ever. I mean, the whole thing wasn't even true. It was partially true and maybe still partially bizarre that a guy would want to wear a dress as Homecoming King. I'm not going to address that. I do think that's a little bit odd, but all things being said, the news is just messing with our heads and causing us. I mean, there's someone who's probably out there still riled up because they got caught up in the comments and someone else commented back and, basically punched them back. And now their whole day is ruined and they now have anxiety and can't focus on loving people. They can't focus on the relationship. They can't focus on talking. You can't focus on having a relationship and talking with God if you're riled up about someone bashing you back on Facebook because something you don't agree with. And there's nothing you can say to get someone who thinks that's right to agree with you. So just let it be. Be like the sheep, the unanxious lamb. And that is the goal of this whole podcast, that we can be more like those sheep. And that doesn't mean ignore everything. And obviously doesn't mean get run over by a car if it's coming at you. But it means if a car is stopped and it's honking at you, that's that person on Facebook, or maybe it is a person in traffic who's honking at you. Instead of getting riled up, instead of flicking them off or having it ruin your day, just take a deep breath and say, God, thank you just for being a part of my life. And you pray for that person. When I do that, and it's not easy, that someone irritates me or has done something to me or my family that really rubs me the wrong way, it is really tough. But every time I do it, wow, what a change in my life and change in my attitude, the change I'm able to go impact on other people. I'm able to go love on other people, build relationships, talk with God. It is really, really, really tough to have a good relationship with anyone, including God, if you're angry, if you're riled up about something, or if you're anxious, honestly. I know when I was going through those anxiety attacks, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't really have God in my life like I do today. And it was really hard to, because I was constantly thinking about my anxiety. I was constantly thinking about something that was going to happen that hadn't even happened yet that was going to stress me out. Like, that was such a big part of my headspace. And that is just not good. And as easy as is for me now to say that was kind of dumb of me, I do understand that it's hard and it takes some time, but you got to start somewhere. As I tell, my own kids that, Sean is struggling just like with something small, just getting out of bed. Like it's a habit. Like, you got to start somewhere. Yes, I get it. You're not an early morning person. Not everyone is. That's fine. But you still have to be at school on time. And at some point, you're going to be in college and you're going to be required to go. And there's not going to be a mom or dad sitting there trying to wake you up. Like, start now. And so we're starting with her, and she's doing a good job, actually. It's a habit. Like, you got to do it for usually 20, 30 days, but you got to start somewhere. And it's not going to be perfect, and it's not going to feel good, right? It's going to be uncomfortable those first few times. Just like anything, if you stop drinking or stop smoking or stop eating as much or whatever it is, it's always uncomfortable to create this habit. This is no different with anxiety. It took me having to say, all right, I'm going to start praying every day. And that wasn't easy. If you hadn't done it in a long time, it's not easy. I'm going to go outside and just talk with God. I'm going to walk every day. I'm going to send someone a random text that I love them and tell them I'm grateful for them every day. Like, all that stuff is uncomfortable if you haven't done it in a while, but all of a sudden it gets comfortable and it gets easier. And all of a sudden you're like, oh man, I'm feeling different. So that's my prayer and my challenge to all of you is to be that unanxious lamb. And it takes having a shepherd in your life, a God in your life. And once again, those sheep that we were seeing in the middle of the road there in Argentina and Chile, they could not actually see their shepherd. They're very similar to us. We can't actually see God, but we could sense him. They knew he was there up in front of them. So that is the challenge and the only way to do that is to have a conversation, a walk with God, if you will, in your life that we talked about before in the past. And that usually just starts with just prayer. starting your morning off every day of just praying, and you'll be surprised at what things get unlocked in your life, how the anxiety and that stress kind of just melt away. And that's a good feeling, by the way. I know it because I've been on both sides of the spectrum. I've been where I had that daily anxiety, and the last thing it was doing is melting away. It was boiling up. And now I'm able, through prayer and just having a mission in life, and just through that slow breathing and just being calm, I can just feel. And I'm doing it real slow for a reason, because that's how I kind of train my body. I feel that stress and that anxiety, it just like melts away. And all of a sudden you're breathing slow and looking around and appreciating everything around you. And I'm telling you, it's an awesome, awesome feeling. And everyone can get there, and everyone deserves to get there, not just once, but all the time. So be that unanxious lamb. Hope this was helpful. I always pray before every single one of these episodes that I record that it hits that right person. God put this one on my heart for a reason. So I'm hoping it hit the right person or people. And if I can ever help you guys out in any way, prayer requests, thoughts, questions, help, anything, I'll always do my best. Joe@saltstrong.com. Joe@saltstrong.com is my email. Otherwise, I will talk to you on the next episode.
'Cause fishing, it's in my soul.